Thank you for joining us for the replay. I am Elisa Meredith at Tailwind, and I am joined today by Jeff C., Manly Pinterest Tips. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on, Elisa. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. What are we talking about today, Jeff?
Wood carving. Wasn't that the topic that you asked me to talk about? Yeah. Beard care?
Wood carving and beard care. That was what the survey respondents said they were really looking forward to today. So
okay, good.
We'll just start there and stay there. Or we could talk about kind of a continuation of my conversation with Jen Herman about a month ago. We talked about shadow ban.
Oh, yeah. So we're talking about Instagram. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. I should probably say that.
Yeah. So you guys, here's the thing. We want to make this really geared to what would be good for you. So as we are talking, make sure to ask your comments, not our comments, your comments, and Elisa will pull them up on screen and we'll try to answer them the best we can. But yeah, shadow banning is a big deal. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's like the hashtags that you're putting on there, you're not being allowed into the stream for those certain ones. Now, I know Jen probably, and she's way more deeper into that than I am. I have not personally seen it on any of my accounts. I know it's a thing because a lot of people are talking about it.
Well, it's a thing that people, it's a theory, right?
It's a theory. But I just don't think that, the time you spend trying to track it down would be better spent, in my opinion, on you creating different images and continuing to do what you're doing on Instagram and not, really freaking out about it. Now, if you're a photographer and for some reason that this was, something that was just killing your business, then yeah, maybe. But I think right now it's a lot of, I don't know, it's a lot of time wasted. That's my opinion.
Well, and in fact, Jen Herman is convinced that this whole theory started with photographers. So
yeah, it could.
It could have been. Yeah, but Instagram says there's no such thing as shadow ban. There are banned hashtags, or really it'd be better to call them inactive hashtags, so that they don't work to get you seen by other people who don't follow you.
And that's a good point. I was talking with Peg Fitzpatrick about this issue too, and she was saying that you really got to check every time, even if some real popular hashtag that you had been using before, a lot of times those will be taken over by even spammers or things that you thought I think she was given dogs of Instagram. Yes. I haven't checked it.
Yes,
and
that one is.
It was no, you can't use it anymore because it's junk. And so it's always good practice to go in and check your hashtags. Rotate them out, do some research on them. So that's good. So I would do hashtag research. And by the way, Tailwind has a great tool for that. And spend your time on researching hashtags and maybe some new niches and some new places where you could put your images than worrying about shadow banning. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And the problem that shadow banning brings up is that the reason people blame it is for engagement issues, right? So people are seeing a huge drop in engagement, and this is not just people who are posting junk either. These are really skillful Instagram marketers who are seeing these same kinds of drops. So something is going on, yes, but.
And I can speak to that. So I run Social Media Examiner's Instagram account, and we have, as of now, 45.1 thousand followers. And we're seeing a big drop in engagement. But the cool thing is, I think a lot of that engagement that was happening before was because of bots, those fake bots that were going in and doing that. I think there was an inflated sense of the engagement, and there's probably been some drop in engagement as well. But I've noticed the people who are engaging on our account that I talk to regularly are still there engaging. So yes, engagement is down, but I think the people who are making an effort and are really talking to people in the streams, that is going to still be worth your time. So don't give up talking to people, and you want to check your comments on Instagram and all that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we wanted to head today, was creating genuine engagement on your Instagram profile, because that is where you're going to get more success. More people are going to find you. You're going to show up in your followers' feeds more. So Instagram has come out with about 3 different things that can help you do that in a more effective way and a more creative way. So we thought we'd talk about those and how we might use them.
That's right. So what do you want to talk about first? You tell me.
I think we should go comment threads. That one was really exciting to me because it just makes sense, right?
Yeah, and it's easier to follow along in a conversation, and now it's easier to, reply. So what that means is with comment threads is like if somebody makes a comment on your Facebook post, you can reply down below it, and it's broken down like a comment thread, and it's very, very handy for being part of the conversation. You can jump in the conversation, or you can, make sure people are seeing it. One of the things that is a real struggle, and if you've done a lot of work on Instagram, is comment tracking. In fact, we use a third-party tool, and I use a third-party tool for my clients, so I don't miss comments, because even with engagement down, Instagram is one of the best places to engage. And so I use third-party tools to make sure I don't miss comments, because a lot of times people will come in, you may have posted something a week ago and they commented on it, and you may not even see it because you're not, looking, or it's going too fast. And so taking care of those comments, and I think the comment threads is a great way for Instagram kind of to address that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's always nice to get your fans and followers talking to each other as well.
Right, so, yeah. So then you can just sit back and go, oh, my work is done.
Yes, that's right.
Talking on my post. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that was my favorite one, perhaps because I understand it better than the others. So that's why you're here today, to help us understand more about what we can do with Instagram direct messages.
Right.
Yeah. Why should you use direct messages to begin with, Jeff? What do you think?
It's just a way to engage people. Now, you won't want to be spammy. It's easy. You could easily go the way of Twitter direct messages and be, people hate those.
Yeah.
And so, but we get, like for the Social Media Examiner account, we really get good questions. We don't get a lot of spam. We like, hey, what are you using for this? Or how do I do this? And so it's a great way to have one-on-one, with your audience. And so if you ask, like if you're doing an Instagram story and say, hey, message me what you think about this, and what do you think about, or what is your favorite tool or whatever, and they message you back. You can do a video, they can do a post. I mean, it's a cool way to almost drive down that intimacy really quickly. And so that's one of the ways to use direct messages.
So you're talking about using it as a follower to the page or the brand.
Yeah, we get a lot of followers to the brand. I do not think, unless you have already set it up and have permission where you're like, hey, this group of people, I'm going to send a direct message to, like, hey, I've got a new blog post. I think just looking at your list and checking all those people and sending them a direct message is spammy. I don't like that. Now, if they've asked for something or you want to take something offline, that happens a lot, at least for the Social Media Examiner account. And I get a lot of questions on my personal account that it's just, hey, what did you use for this tool? Or, hey, are you going to be at this conference or whatever? And it's more of a kind of the direct message, kind of like on Twitter. And so I just think it's a great feature.
Yeah, I agree. Now, we do have a question from Aria. Can you share the tool you use to track? And I think that was in reference to comments on Instagram.
Yes, and a really great, and these are both paid versions of tools. And to me, because I run a lot of accounts and because I don't want to miss any comments, it's worth the amount I pay for it. So we use Iconosquare at Social Media Examiner, which allows us, one, it has incredible analytics. It lets me kind of schedule my posts. And the one I use for a lot of mine, other than Tailwind for scheduling and figuring out that kind of stuff, is I use Agorapulse. Those are two of the ones that I really like to track comments. That is the biggest reason that I use a third-party tool, is because of the ability to track comments, because they're so important. And Iconosquare and Agorapulse let me do that from the desktop, so I don't have to get on my phone and type response to comments in. So I can track all those. It's kind of a thing. It shows me all the ones that I need to respond to, and once I respond to them, they're gone, kind of like an inbox. So it's very, very, that's what I use for comment tracking.
Did you know that you could do that with Tailwind?
I have not played with it yet.
Yeah. So I'm showing my screen right now, looking at the post inspector for Instagram, and you can see all your posts. You can order them by date or the number of comments even, which might be kind of handy in this situation. Then you can see your comments and reply to them there. Of course, it's loading a little slow right now because we're broadcasting live, but all that is right in there as well.
Well, that's cool because that's the biggest thing for using a third party tool is the comment tracking for me. I mean, I like being able to schedule, and I know a lot of the lifestyle photographers and stuff like that. They like to, and we even do it to an extent on Social Media Examiner's account. We have like alternating dark white, so it has the grid look when you look at the profile. And I know a lot of people want to see that, laid out and how that's going to look. So. That's another reason people use those third-party tools as well. But yeah, Tailwind, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we do have that 9-grid preview as well. So as you're scheduling things, you can kind of see, is this going to fit in? Is this going to break up the look of my account? Should I move it around?
And when you're evaluating tools, make sure, and that's why I like Tailwind, because of course I use it for Pinterest, but you want to look at the tool and see, some tools will be like, okay, they'll give you a 9-grid and that's their big feature. Some tools will let you do comment tracking. Some tools will do stats. So you want to look like Tailwind and see, okay, they do all this stuff, so I don't have to jump into all these different tools. So that's a great feature that I think when I was tested it before, it was in beta and I hadn't rolled out yet. So I think that's why I played with it.
That could well be. Okay. Cool. So one of the updates that has to do with direct messages would be that you can now send web links. And
yes.
I tried this with you earlier, right? And it's supposed to show an inline preview so you know you're on the right page. So how would you use that to engage with people?
I think, if somebody's like, if we get a question, like, if like in Tailwind, like if you posted a story like, hey, come out and check Jeff and Elisa, they're going to be a live show. And they do that. And they said, hey, I watched your live show. They direct message you and said, hey, I watched your live show. Where do you guys talk about shadow banning? Well, then you could put your link to the article in and send it right to them through the Instagram direct message, and it has that inline preview. And it's very, very cool. So that would be one of the ways to use that live preview. Once again, I wouldn't just start sending out your articles through direct messages. That's kind of spammy. But answering questions with direct message, I think that's a great way for businesses to use it. One of the clients that I run on Instagram is one of the largest handmade chocolate factory here in the United States. And, they'll get questions seasonally like, hey, are you selling Anna Claire's anymore? And we can say, yes, here's the page. And we could send it right through Instagram stories back to that person who asked that question. And boom, they have a link and they can purchase if they want to, or they can find out the information. So I think that's a great way to use that as well. Answering questions to me in Direct Messenger is one of the best features because, one, they feel like it's like one-on-one, like it's you going to the counter at the hardware store and saying, hey, where can I find this? And you have somebody telling you that. Well, that to me is like the behind the counter intimacy thing that direct messages can do. Right.
So I'm thinking about how else we could use them to engage.
Well, ask questions like, we kind of did a story yesterday, but you could only almost do a story where if you're wanting to get people to respond to you and maybe train them to start using direct messages, you could almost do like a little game show. Like we had a report that came out yesterday at Social Media Examiner, which was like the creator series. Where do people make their most money online? And you could ask that question and say, hey, it's either A, B, or C, direct message me what you think. And that way you could have almost like a little game show coming back, and then you could respond to them that way. And any way you can think of to drive intimacy or drive that, it can be time consuming. So if you have a large account, you want to make sure you have time to go back and answer all these direct messages you may get. But that's a way to do it. You could also, hey, we're wanting to, if you want to use this new inline feature where you can share web pages, you could say, hey, we want to highlight somebody in our audience's blog post. Send me your blog post address with a direct message. And then you could collect that, and then you could say, hey, we wanted to highlight Elisa Meredith at blah, 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 and, and show it that way. So there's tons of creative ways you could look at doing that.
Yeah, and because you can now reply to a direct message with photos of any orientation, you could also say, send your user-generated content that we can use on our page. So rather than having to go look for it,
Right. So if you had like a mascot or something you could print out, Flat Stanley, our kids used to do all the time, where you take Flat Stanley around and they take a picture and you'd send it off. Well, you could do something with your logo and said, hey, we're going to have a contest. We're going to give away a free Kindle Fire to the best image of with our logo, and have them send them us in direct message, and it's a great way to get user generated content.
Yeah, excellent. I think I get so few direct messages on Instagram that anytime I do, I really pay attention, and it makes you feel a little bit special, especially if it's a brand that reaches out to you. It's like, they notice that I'm here. Yeah.
The other thing that's really cool is, and this is just general with Instagram, but even more with direct messages, is that I've found that it's easier to maybe get a hold of somebody who's like a big influencer, like they'll never answer me over on Facebook, but on Instagram, they will. So what I like to, like I asked questions before, like I was, there's a cool story I saw from a brand, and I sent them a direct message and said, hey, what tool did you use to do that? And they sent me, we use this. And so there's a little bit of more of, a quicker response. There's a little bit more, you can get a hold of the right people you need to right now on Instagram. So
yeah, kind of like Twitter used to be.
Yeah. And it still is to on some degree, but it's so noisy there. I just think there's a little bit more, there's less barrier to entry on Instagram right now.
There's less barrier to entry, but I think each piece of content takes a lot more work. So
yeah, it does.
Right. But it is rewarding. Yeah. But so we're talking about direct messages, but there are also some new ways to reply to stories they're kind of cool. I did one today with a cat face, replied to a friend of mine, just kind of messing around. But I saw that I could have videoed or replied to Jimmy Fallon. I have no idea what I say to him.
Right. But the cool thing too that came out just today as well is that you can share stories. So if you see a story that you really like, so you saw one on my account, and now you have the ability that I could share it to you. So I could click on share and say, hey, look at what Jimmy Fallon did. And then we could have a conversation there. So that is brand new. And so I really haven't wrapped my mind around it, but if there's a way you can get people to share your story, like figure out a contest or some sort of, how many people can share your story. Hey, if you share this with 6 people, you'll be entered to win. I don't know how you track it or any of that stuff because it just rolled out. Okay. But of course you want people to share your story. I mean, that's a big deal. So one, you need to make your story shareable and start thinking of what ways, it may not be now, just walking around going, hey, look at, you want to make sure that you're doing something to get shared. And so, just the storytelling aspect is going to be a more and more important, I think, in Instagram and all social media, because people are not just wanting to, hear somebody talk. They're going to want to see some entertainment. They're going to want to see a story being told, something that they can interact with. And Instagram is starting to give us those tools to do that. And so it's up to us as marketers to think about, okay, how can we do that to show a side of our brand that we want people to see?
So will we be seeing magic tricks on your stories?
I don't know. I'll disappear or something. But who knows?
That could be creative, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts. Now people who've already got a big following. So I think of Final Cut Pro, Zach King. He does those really cool visual effects and all that stuff. Those are going to be shared. So you may not be able to compete with that, but you can think of ways that you can get your stuff shared. Like it's going to be, those kind of creative things, and find your niche and don't cuteness, try to be another.
Cuteness works.
Yeah, cuteness. Zach King. You don't try to be another Zach King, but do your own thing. Yeah.
Right. So have you seen other stories that have made you want to share? Because he's the first one that came to mind as we were talking about stories.
Yeah, there's a couple good brands. I mean, and we'll talk about them. I think you want us to share some profiles, but I'm a big fan of following Pixar because one, they know how to tell stories. Any of the Pixar movies are just incredibly the way they can tell a story, and they do a lot of cool stories. They have a good Instagram post. They post a lot of cool stuff. They also do a lot of cool behind the scenes at Pixar, and it's just, if you want to learn how to do Instagram right, that's one of the people I would recommend to follow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look at that. I feel like Pixar might be a little intimidating, right?
Well, but the thing is you'd think so, but they do a lot of stuff that's not like, they're not doing a computer generation. They had an intern take their phone around and do something, behind the scenes at Pixar. So it was stuff like that you could actually hack and work for your own business, something like it. So they're not always just going, hey, I'm animating, Buzz Lightyear to do stuff on stories. They're actually thinking of creative ways to go around and tell stories just in their environment. So it's a good one to look at and see.
Yeah. Now, my choice to follow is Letterfolk, which it's a pretty simple concept. I'm sharing the screen now, but it's just like a felt letterboard where with letters that you can rearrange to say whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
And I would not have thought that would do well on Instagram, but it's the storytelling behind it. So the example that I have pulled up is this lady who documented her pregnancy week by week, and it's just absolutely adorable. And that's so Letterfolk. The picture I'm looking at now is she's got a watermelon taped to her husband's stomach and his duct tape over his mouth. Yeah, it's really, really cute. But looking at Letterfolk, all of their pictures are like that. They're things you can see using in your own projects, which I think is really super effective on Instagram.
In that same vein, I saw somebody who's a really well-known, I can't remember her name, but she's a podcaster, and she does that with her episodes. She uses that letterboard kind of stuff and writes a new letter and arranges it really pretty every time. And it's like episode, blah, 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 and it has the letterboard there, and she takes a picture and shares that to Instagram, which I thought was very creative. So
let's all buy letterboards.
Yeah, and but also, in that same vein, and you talk about things that are really cool, is Constant Contact used to take pictures of their employees holding up signs of their biggest mistakes they've made on social media. Yes. And it was hilarious, and it was also very it was just cool how they did it. And so that was a creative way to do that. And I use this every time I think this example, but there's a local channel here, a local business here that's not smoothie, but frozen ice.
Snow cone. Snow
cone place, yes. And they use natural ingredients and everything. And they're out of an Airstream trailer. But at the end of the day, they always sell out. And they have the last little kid who gets the cone take a picture of the chalkboard that says sold out, and they're making a face holding the cone. And it's awesome because people want to get that picture now, and it goes viral on Instagram every time. It tells everybody that they're going to sell out, so get there soon. And it's just it's a genius way, I think, for a local company to showcase and do user-generated content and highlight their customers.
Yeah, and to keep that engagement up so that everything else that they post will also be seen more in the feed.
Right, exactly.
Super important and so smart. My goodness. Yeah. Another person that you recommended to follow is Peg Fitzpatrick.
Yes, she does a very good job.
She does.
Her images are great. She engages. And she uses a great way of mixing her posts, but also doing stories regularly. So, people don't discover you through stories usually. That's kind of you talking to your audience already on Instagram who's following you. And so she does a great blending of both, trying to get research the hashtags and getting people to follow her account, but then also engaging with those people who do follow her account with stories. So it's she does a really good job of blending both of those.
And you know what I notice about her is that it's almost impossible for you to get the last word when you comment on a Peg Fitzpatrick post.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean that in the good way, because she replies to every genuine comment out there. And that is so important.
And there's a reason she does that, because that helps with the Instagram algorithm is what she believes. She believes the more she does that and not letting a lot of time elapse, she believes helps with keeping her up there in the Instagram algorithm.
So is it looking for your responsiveness? Is that the theory?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think that you're actually going back and commenting. I think, that's kind of Facebook's, I've heard the same thing over there as well. And that you're going back and interacting with people who comment. So, the time probably makes a difference as well. I don't know. Yeah. Nobody knows the super secret algorithms.
Right. They won't tell us, but we can guess. And I think I've heard the theory, and maybe this is part of it as well, that your comments count as engagement on your own posts too, right? So rather than replying to 3 people in one comment, I would do 3 separate comments.
Yeah, I usually do, and that's why I like those third-party things. And Tailwind, like you said, has that now, and so able to go in and do that manually is very cool.
Yeah. And then there was another one because you just had all these people we should follow.
Yeah, Rob at Bold Brand Fast. And the cool thing about him, if you go look at his profile, he is one of those guys who he makes his artwork go all the way across the profiles. So if you scroll in his feed and see the 9 grid, he has it laid out very, very creatively. And I've had him on my show before. He's a cool guy, but I like following him too, just because of his creativity. So I tried to give you like big, huge, like Peg Fitzpatrick, and then Pixar, and then Rob, who's just killing it, and he's growing. So I'm trying to give you all the spectrum of people.
Yeah,
so
thank you. Those are cool. Okay, so more to follow. Okay. Now all these accounts that we're looking at, they are business accounts. So I know some people are kind of reluctant to go from a personal to a business account because they feel like, much like with Facebook, as soon as you do that, Instagram is going to start cutting back on your reach.
Right.
How do you feel about that? I know you were a little conflicted about it.
This is a very controversial subject. Now, you talked to Jen Herman, who you've talked about on before. She says you're an idiot if you're not going to a business account. She's 100% on business accounts. That being said, I'll put a link in the comments, but on Entrepreneur Magazine, they had a thing as why you shouldn't have a business account. And so I have both. I manage business accounts, and I also manage, mine right now is still a personal account. The big thing that you can't do, a big con for if you keep it as a personal account, is you can't do advertising. So you can't you can't boost your post inside of Instagram like you can, like if you have a business account. You don't get stats like you do in a business account. You don't have some of that contact stuff that you like, the call and all that stuff in your profile like you would on a business account. The big thing, and Facebook's known for this, is that once they give you something and you're growing, like they did with business profiles, is they will take it away. And so the big concern is that if you switch over to a business account, you're going to have to start paying for your engagement. Some people, the cool thing is you can switch back right now. You can switch back and forth. Yeah, and there's no penalty. In fact, I believe Peg switched back to a business account. I'm not 100%.
To a business account or to a personal?
To a personal account. She switched back to a personal one. I think. I'm not 100%. I can't remember. Just to test it, because she's always testing like everything else.
Sure.
Because of some of the rumors about going down. So it just depends. I mean, for me, it doesn't matter because I'm a personal brand. I love the beard too. Thank you, Angie.
And I just thought I'd pay it back because she said it was very distracting. So
I don't know. I could tuck it behind something. But anyway, now I'm distracted. What was I saying? Oh, so I keep mine as a personal one because it really doesn't matter, and I use third-party tools to get my analytics with, so I don't need it. Jen is really her big thing is like you get all that stuff with a business account. Right now, you can switch it back. It's worth doing. You get all this other stuff. You're able to use advertising. So she recommends it. So I think it's gonna be more on an individual basis what's gonna work for you. I don't think one person's gonna say, hey, you have to do it, or you don't because it's gonna kill your engagement. It's going to depend on what you're doing.
Like with Facebook or even with Pinterest, if you use your account for business purposes, you have to have a business account or you're against terms, but that's not the case with Instagram.
I looked before the show because I knew that question was going to come up, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I didn't see anybody talking about them breaking terms of service. So as far as I can tell, you can't. I think if you...
Yeah, I think it's
like the chocolate factory I mentioned before, we're a business account because I want the contact stuff in there. I want all the stuff in the profile to get them there. If they need directions to the store, I want them there. So to me, it made sense for them. And we also do ads there a lot. So people will see it. For my kind of personal, and if I was a blogger or more of a blog, I mean, it may not make sense to do that. And I haven't done it yet just because I've got these other ones I can test and play with. So it doesn't make any difference to me.
For a local business to be able to have that call.
Yeah, I think that would be worth it. Yeah.
Too.
But that's why I was saying you're going to have to look at your business and your goals. and I'll try to put this in the comments too. I found a really cool infographic that kind of broke it down. If you want advertising, you go here. If you want to go here, you want to go here. So, Johanna, I'll put that in the comments so you guys can see that, because I thought it was a good breakdown of, kind of the questions you should ask, and then should you switch or not. As of now, you can switch back and forth, and there's no penalty. You just lose your stats. That's the other thing that we really like with Social Media Examiner, because ours is a business account. We did switch it over. It allows us to track stories. So like if right now, if you're doing a story, you can go in and see how many people watched it. But if you forget by the time the 24 hours is gone, then you miss those stats. For in a business account, you're able to see those stats and go back in. I think it's up to a week or more, and see how many people actually viewed each individual story. So you can see, like I posted this one and then I had another one. You can see the drop off, and so did I lose them after that first story, or are they continue to watch? So that's kind of cool that you can be able to track with a business account.
Yeah. Now I know you've put up a bunch of different kinds of stories. So what do you find works best as far as engagement? Is it the still photos? Is it animation videos? Is it live videos? Is it person talking? What is working?
It just depends. And the thing is now, you can go live on Instagram and save it to your stories. So
right.
You can actually, and so it makes a long story that you can kind of fast forward through with your thumb. So like today I saw Pat Flynn did a live and he had to go to stories. So it showed up in the stories as well. It just depends, because there's so many different types. So you're going to have to test them and see what you're most comfortable with, and what you're going to, what you're most comfortable with, and then what's working for your audience. Because I think it depends on your audience. So like the kind of stories I would do would be totally different from what Peg does when she's in New York and going all these things, because she has a different audience than I do. So it just is going to depend. But I would experiment with all sorts of things, like photos, creative things. We're always trying new things at Social Media Examiner. We've tried going live and then going to story. We've tried, yesterday we kind of did a kind of a game show kind of thing where we ask a question. And so it just depends on what you're trying to do and what your audience is. What I would say, throw in variety. I think that's just a no-brainer, and try to do different things and then find out kind of what works the best.
Excellent. Okay. I feel like my comments are not refreshing over here, so I apologize if I'm missing anybody. But I wanted to share something that we have over at Tailwind. I'll drop it right in the comments here. I think mine are going through. An Instagram Jumpstart challenge is something that Melissa Meganson put together at Tailwind, and it is 30 days to the best Instagram account ever. So basically it helps you set up your profile, optimize it, and then gives you prompts of what to schedule out for the next 30 days. And of course, the idea is to use a scheduler so you can kind of batch these things. And I think you could probably use that kind of batch mentality to figure out what kind of stories are going to go along with that. So as you're sharing your picture of where I stand today, that might be one of the prompts for the day. I think it actually is. You might think about what kind of story would go well with that. Well, probably showing your workspace, which may be boring and everyday to you, but other people are kind of curious to see what's behind that camera.
I have a cone of cleanliness that you can't see on the other side, and so that would be scary. I'd have to do some major overhaul here. So,
well, I wasn't going to say anything about that, but just in theory, it could be a really good idea. So go ahead and sign up for that. I know it's very hard to post every day to Instagram, but we did a study of Tailwind members that showed that those who post every day do so much better than those who post about once a week. So if you could do it, it's going to make a huge difference, not just in your follower count, but in your engagement as well, as people start getting used to seeing you there.
Very cool.
So Jeff, where can we find out more about you?
You can always find me everywhere on the social interwebs at Jeff, and the last name is spelled S as in Sam, I-E-H, I before E, especially in C, and also at manlypinteresttips.com, where we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time.
Excellent. And now you do some Pinterest consulting services, right?
Yeah, I do Pinterest consulting, social media stuff. We're just getting ready to launch a mastermind group, which will be very, very cool. So I'm a big fan of masterminds. And so Lisa's actually in one of mine. So
yep.
That's one of the things I think has boosted my business to the next level. I do want to give kind of a secret tip here at the end for Instagram that I have found really, really helpful, especially if you have a brick and mortar business or that you have a product you're selling. So I'm going to go back to the chocolate factory example one more time. And the thing that I've really found is people have started to, like, they'll take a picture of the chocolates in their own shop because they sell them across the nation, and they take them and they put them in their own shop to sell. And they'll tag us on Instagram. Well, then I always ask permission and I go, hey, is it okay if I repost our account? And that is allowing them to get, and they love it. I have not had anybody say no yet. They're like, yes, oh, please do it. And so I get up their permission, and then I use the repost app and post it on Instagram. Well, the cool thing is that most of the time, in fact, I don't think I've ever found a time that's not happened, is they've also posted that on Facebook. So I also can go into Facebook and do a search for that company, and then I like them as that page, and then I share that to our account. So they're getting love from us, and we are getting user-generated content, and so there's no downside to it. And so that's a great way for businesses who have a product, or if they're having flowers somewhere, like I can see a flower shop where they're having somebody that has an arrangement in their house and they tag them. Ask permission if you can use that on your account. And if they say yes, then use it everywhere. And it's user-generated account stuff, and people love that. Even if it's not the best photo, that you gave love to somebody who is using your product, other people notice and really, really like that. So that's kind of a secret ninja tip that I've found lately that's been really, really cool.
Yeah, and you could use direct messages to ask permission. That's an easy way to do it. And in fact, if you use Tailwind, you can schedule those reposts from the desktop. If you go to their Instagram account, you can schedule it from desktop, and it will come up automatically with their repost and with their account name and everything. So,
and I would always ask permission, because you can't really just take somebody, even if they mentioned you, that's their photo, that's their property, that's their right. But I have never had anybody say no. And plus, by asking permission, once again, that's giving you points and you looking good, and then you can also engage in dialogue maybe with something else. So it's very, very cool. So just make sure you do that.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jeff. We will be back in about a month to talk about more interesting ways we can engage and grow our follower base, and even get sales and website visitors from Instagram. So we'll see you again soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.